me, mister, do you have the time? Are you so important to stand still for you? Excuse me, mister.
Hi Dale, nice to have you here with us today. I first heard of you in IATF Brighton last year. I think it was Anthony who mentioned you in his interview. And unfortunately, your session wasn't recorded, so I wasn't able to watch it. Was that your first presentation as an Afro teacher, and what was the session about?
Anthony's interview, well, that's going to go down in history, isn't it, as one of the best interviews of all time with an EFL teacher. Well, IATFL last year, it was my first conference and my first time speaking in front of such a big and famous audience. And I remember looking around at the audience and recognising all the big faces. My hands were literally shaking. Why did I end up at IATFL? Well, the summer before, somebody mentioned in passing to me that I should apply, and I applied, they accepted, and April came along quicker than I thought, and I found myself there. My talk was mainly about two aspects. The first was how a new teacher, as myself, could use dogma in a classroom, putting to bed the myth that newly qualified teachers can't do this. I also wanted to show how it could actually be beneficial for a teacher to use this, to step beyond their boundaries, to find out where their weaknesses are, and generally experiment from day one. The second thread of my talk was journal writing, and using a reflective sort of framework to boost one's development in the first years of teaching. I connected this with using dogma in the classroom, and I would say that this set off a cycle of development in my first sort of year and a half of teaching. That second thread I've actually taken and developed into a talk and lots of posts on my blog. The talk being at TESOL France and again at IATFL this year. So why did I do it? Well, I like to push myself to the limit of my comfort zone, and I thought, why not? Try something new. If you don't like it, then you don't speak at conferences. If you like it, you can speak at conferences. I also wanted to let the world know. I wanted people to know that limitations aren't really are only really in existence until someone comes along and rewrites the rule book. I think the rise in popularity of dogma blogs and blogs of newly qualified teachers, especially from ones like Adam Beale, are a complete testament to this.
Now let's go back a little. You graduated in history, so how did you get into language teaching? Why not history?
So I graduated in history in 2008 from the University of Birmingham, and basically I chose history because when I was doing A-levels I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed reading history books. But I have to say that university really sucked the fun out of it for me. By the third year I didn't really want to do history anymore, and I didn't even want to read a history book anymore. So after university I thought about what the hell I could do with my life. And I decided that instead of taking a conventional gap year where you go around the world partying, I thought I'd do something that I could really get something out of. So I chose to go to Florence and to learn Italian for 6 months, which is where I discovered my love for languages. And I guess that I'd always had a thing for it. But never really realised it. When I was 16, I really got into learning German at school, but never really saw that this was a passion of mine. So I attended language school in Florence, as I said, for 6 months, and some of the things that I noticed stood out very clear to me. That one, I went through 6 months of grammar tuition, and rarely expressed anything I wanted to say in class. And in fact, now I remember very little of what I learnt in those 6 months. The second thing was that the teachers in front of me seemed to be having a really good time when they were doing their job. And as a guy in a gap year without any direction, I was searching for some sort of direction for my life, and that's where I found it. I think I would have learnt a lot more and remembered a lot more thinking back if I'd had more opportunity to speak about things closer to my life, to be able to engage in conversation in class. I used to say to myself after class, well, that's the time where you learn, and then outside of class is the time when you talk.
Tell us what happened after Florence.
Well, then I came back to England with a seriously large bank overdraft and a lot of verb tables in my head. Also, another thing I came back with was a lot of beliefs about language learning and language teaching, but those were kind of lying dormant inside of me. And they started to come out when I decided to take a week of work experience at a language school. And from what I saw, it was quite similar to the experience I'd had in Florence. Lots of photocopies, very little student participation in class. And I thought to myself, is this what the world is like? Is this really the thing that I want to do? And started to question whether I was making the right choice. Then I asked the head of that school where would be best to do an initial qualification, and she mentioned International Health London. So basically I then signed up for the CELTA course at IH London, and a lot of those beliefs changed.
So in spite of your reservations regarding language teaching, you still decided to do CELTA. Was that where you first heard about dogma?
And it was the end of my CELTA course that I first heard about dogma. The course tutor wrote the name of the approach on the board and said, if you guys fancy researching this, then go away and research it. I'm not going to tell you anything about it, and I'm not going to answer any of your questions about it. If you want to know, go and read about it. So naturally, being up for a challenge and quite stubborn, I decided, I'm going to go read about that. So I went to the library, took out Teaching Unplugged, and read it within 25 minutes on the train ride home. That night I then decided, okay, I'm going to try one of these lessons. So I went to my DOS the next day, who was a very, very supportive and very, very understanding person, and he encouraged me to try it, and then to come and tell him how it went. So I did the lesson, and meanwhile this man went and found Chia in my staff room, who then came to me afterwards and wanted to know how it went, and that's how I first met Chia.
So you were introduced to Chia, and could you tell us what happened then?
At the time, she was in the process of planning her first IATEFL talk on improvised principled eclecticism, or IPE, if you like acronyms. And I think in those first meetings there was something for both of us. Well, I hope there was something for both of us, because there was definitely something for me in those meetings. She gave me the opportunity to reflect on the first few dogma lessons I tried, and actually the voice of support and voice of encouragement was really, really helpful, because otherwise you don't really know what is dogma or what isn't dogma, or if you did it right or if you didn't do it right. So it was really helpful to have someone there to offer that support. And I think without it, I might have not tried the second or the third, because the difficult thing is actually being able to connect what you do to what they say. In the sense that you don't really know if what you've done is it or isn't it until you really develop an idea for yourself of what the idea means to you. So at first, the meetings offered me encouragement and recognition, and in a way she took me through a bit of an informal post-lesson reflection, which was really, really helpful for when I was on my own and asked myself the same questions.
In what way has she influenced your journey as a language teacher?
So if I could sum up our friendship and both professional and personal friendship with one word, it would be inspiration. I think she's been a constant inspiration to me from the start, and I think she pushes me towards new and exciting areas of teaching and makes sure that I'm always at the edge of my comfort zone. But also at the same time, always someone there to help you reflect and evaluate on that. Also a great friend and a great drinking buddy. We've had a lot of pub rants in Covent Garden pubs in the time that I was in London, and I think Luke Middings played part in some of those. Also, she introduced me to Luke for the first time. I can't tell you how much, again, shaking hand. It was like meeting a celebrity for the first time. And I can't begin to remember how many different people in ELT I've met as a result of her. At IATEFL, she was almost like my PR agent. It was fantastic. I got to know so many new people, and I'm really thankful for that.
What did you do when you finished CELTA?
So, let's go back to when I finished CELTA in July 2009. I spent 2 months teaching in the summer school where I did my CELTA at International House London, and then in September I moved back to Italy, to a small corner of the southeast in Puglia. There is where I discovered my love for cycling and mozzarella. Also, I was teaching at the same time, and I'd say also that that's where the seeds that were planted, the dogma seeds that were planted in London, started to sprout and germinate. In May 2010, one of my housemates was meant to have somebody come to see him, and they were going to go on a cycling tour. And turns out that the volcano in Iceland erupted and his friend couldn't come, but he'd rented a bicycle, so he asked me if I wanted to come, and I did, and that's where my love affair with bicycles started. After that, I came back to London to teach in the summer school, which originally was only going to be a temporary thing, and then I planned to move back out either to Rome or to Barcelona, but it turned out that I wanted to stay at International House in London for a bit longer, and this was both for personal reasons and for professional reasons, because in September I decided that it was a good time to apply to do Delta, and since the distance course had already started, I decided to apply for the UCL course for Delta. So January came along and I started the course, and those 6 months went very, very quickly, and now they all seem a bit of a blur, but I'm sure they didn't seem like a blur when they were happening. They were 6 really intense and very difficult months, but luckily I came out the other side in June 2011, and by that time I'd already, I'd spoken at IATEFL, I'd completed Delta, and I'd also started my blog, Language Moments.
Now tell me, Dale, what was the real reason for starting your blog?
So why did I start my blog? Well, why does anyone start a blog? To gain an internet following and get popular on the internet. I wanted to provide a source of information for any dogma teachers out there who are either looking for some sort of support or who are looking for ideas, because I know that when I was in Italy, that was the one thing that was missing from my development, that I was looking for sources all the time to try and help me, to try and give me some sort of confirmation that this is what you're doing and you're doing it right. So I guess I started it as a way of filling in the gaps that were there when I needed that information. But since then, it's really gone in a direction that I would have never expected. At first, I mean, I was writing things that just came into my mind and talking about what I did in my classroom. And I think there were no more than probably about 3 or 4 different people who came to see it. One of them being my mother, and I think the other 2 being close friends on my Delta course. So it was a real shock when things started to take off. And I would have never imagined that it could reach the popularity that it has today, and I have everybody to thank for that. And lately, something that's been occurring a lot more often on the blog is the idea of a lesson skeleton. These are things that I started writing about a year and a half to give me some sort of structure to go into the classroom and to be able to teach dogma without thinking, without panicking when I didn't know which direction I could go in. So I guess it laid a foundation on which I could build. And the lesson skeletons that I post on the blog are ones that have emerged out of my own classes, or ones that I've used before and then experimented with and tweaked a little bit and then reflected on and given it a new form on the blog.
What drives you, Dale?
Oh, good question. What drives me? Well, it might appear that I'm quite a motivated person from my regular blogging and the things that I've done, but actually I'm quite a disorganized and not a particularly motivated person in pretty much all aspects apart from teaching. And I think that comes from the enjoyment that I get out of what I do. When you asked me this question, I had to ring one of the closest people to me in my life, my granddad, to get the answer. And he said it was that I don't get any satisfaction from the money that I take from a job. It's all about the enjoyment and the success. And I think that's it. If I'm successful doing something, and moreover, if I'm successful doing it in my way, and I know that I can do it successfully in my way, then that's what drives me. And that gives me a hunger to discover new things and to add to that. I would say it's probably that more than anything that drives me, knowing that I can do something and knowing that I can do it well in my way, that makes me so driven. I'm also quite a stubborn person, in the sense that if I do something wrong, I want to know why I did it wrong, and I want to know how I can make it right. And so that drives me as well.
Dale, you've given a lot to your readers through your blog, but tell me, what have you yourself got back from it?
Well, it's really nice to know that people that have come to the blog have got something out of it. And I think that the mark that they've left, whether it be their comments or their feedback, or even the fact that they came to the blog, for me offers a really nice and really helpful form of feedback, because writing a blog's not only for giving information to other people, but also to gather a little bit of information for yourself. A lot of the feedback that people have left helps me to crystallize my ideas, especially in reformulating opinions and getting the second opinions of other people. Because as you said in a recent post of yours, it can be quite lonely being a teacher. And I think that blogging, and especially the Twitter community, helps you connect with a lot of other teachers. A lot of other teachers that you'll find have very similar opinions to you. So in that way, it gives you kind of a community, an online community that you can connect with, and that togetherness there gives you a lot of confidence to experiment and gives you a lot of confidence in your own ideas, and just generally makes you feel like a better teacher, which which sometimes is all that you really need, just a bit of confidence in what you're doing, and then you can really shine.
Should all teachers blog?
Should all teachers blog? Well, I don't know, it's a difficult question. If you feel like you've got something to say, and if you feel like you want to share that with people, and if you want to get their opinions and connect with them, then start a blog. That's what I say. Should everyone do it? Well, no, if it's not for you, then don't do it. But like I said, if you've got something to say, it's better that you say it.
Alright, now we find you in Rome. But why Rome? Has your love of history got something to do with that choice?
So yes, now I find myself in Rome. And in fact, I would have found myself in Rome had I waited about another week and a half in September 2009, because I'd applied to the same school that I work at now in Rome, and they actually got back to me 2 weeks later when I'd already accepted the other job to go to Puglia and had already booked my flight. So you could say that, it might be kind of fate that I came back here to work at the very same language school. And what really made me come here? Well, I'd always planned to see Rome, but I thought that 2 or 3 days, 4 days was not enough. I always thought that you had to live there to really experience the city. In many ways, it's kind of like London in that respect, that it's a city in which you really have to live there to know what it's like truly, to go beneath the surface. And would I say that my love of history has influenced this decision at all? Well, I don't think it influenced the decision, but it does play a large part of my everyday life. When I go through the old city gates, this is a bit embarrassing, I imagine, Julius Caesar marching through the gates with his Roman army to retake Rome. Or when I cycle past the Colosseum, there's images of mass celebrations and big grand games come to mind. It's a city where you find history everywhere, and if you ever get sick of it, just go for a walk and you'll fall back in love with it.
What do you like doing in your spare time, Dale?
So what do I like to do in my spare time? Well, as you can probably see, I have a bicycle and I like cycling. And the good thing about being here is within about 20-25 minutes you can be in the mountains. So I quite like taking my bike and going for a couple of hours riding around the countryside and the hills here, which seems to go very well with the second thing that I like to do in my spare time, which is eating. And also the city I'm in goes quite well with this. I also like running and swimming, and I've been saying it for about a year now, but I want to do a triathlon soon, hopefully after Christmas sometime. So that means I like running as well and swimming. So you might say I'm a bit of an exercise freak. What else do I like doing? Well, like any normal 24-year-old, I quite like going out. I quite like going to the piazzas around here. There's something about the drinking culture in Italy that I really like. The fact that you can go out with 10, 12 euros and stay out until 5 o'clock in the morning, come back home and get up for work the next day and not feel absolutely terrible. What else do I like doing? Well, one of the reasons why I moved here was to improve and perfect my Italian. So I like reading Italian literature and watching Italian films, and generally just using the language. It's a real discovery experience living in another country, and I kind of forgot that when I was back in London. So it's been a really refreshing experience coming back here.
Well, thank you, Dale, for sharing part of your life with us today. Just one final question. What's your next goal?
Thanks very much for interviewing me as well. In response to your question, what's my next goal? Well, I've done a lot, and I've done it very quickly, and I've done it in a very short period of time. So I'm looking forward to a bit of consolidation, just to to take a look around me and to think through everything I've done in the past 2 years. I'm presenting at IATEFL in March, so that's one of my next goals. And I just want to continue what I'm doing, writing on the blog, teaching, and making, taking small steps towards perhaps becoming a teacher trainer or doing more in teacher development. More than anything, I want to really just make the most of all the great opportunities that are presenting themselves at the moment, because I have to say it's a very exciting time for me, and I don't want to miss anything.
Thanks again, Dale. Exciting for you, exciting for us. Be sure to catch Dale in the next IATEFL conference in Glasgow. And his blog, don't forget his blog, Language Moments. It's a terrific blog. It's a source of inspiration for a lot of us. So make sure it's on your reading list. Bye for now.